How's it going, guys? Nerdy Gamer here, and this is going to be my top 10 favorite games of 2024. It's that time again to go through games I played this year, and I picked about at least 10 games that I played in full fruition and actually finished and really enjoyed. Originally, there was supposed to be about 12 or 13 games on this list, but unfortunately, due to the fact that I've not finished a few of the games, that's kind of why they're not included on this list. I have a rule where I don't exactly include games that I have not finished. However, I will eventually do reviews on those games, maybe in the coming future. But with that being said, let's start with the countdown. Number 10, Funko Fusion. Funko Fusion was a game that I never expected to really enjoy this year. I mean, obviously, because you would think that I actually like Funko Pops, since I'm actually an avid fan of collecting Funko Pops. But this game was completely unexpected for me, obviously because of that reason. And plus, they've never really made an actual game based on Funko Pops. Ever since the whole collecting phase of Funko Pops came out, there's never really been anything compared to like sort of something like this where there was a video game. But after playing the game and actually trying the demo for it when it came out, the demo I would say was kind of glitched, but then they managed to fix the game when it initially released. And after playing the initial release, it actually turned out to be a lot better than I thought it was. The fact that you can actually play as a lot of different characters from previous franchises like Jurassic World, He-Man, Back to the Future, Five Nights at Freddy's, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I mean, there's so many different franchises that they have in this game that's pretty interesting. This game kind of feels a lot like a Lego game in a sense, because a lot of the things that you do in this game, like find all different achievements, you find different objectives, you find pretty much everything, and you kind of go through all the different films and media that they're based on and just basically kind of beat the bosses and everything. It's really cool, and it's actually kind of a neat premise. And that's kind of why I really enjoyed this game. There's kind of moments where the game can be a little bit jarring, but for the most part, this game is a lot of fun. The only thing I would probably say that I was not really like a big fan of, I would say, is probably just the fact that there's only like Universal IPs. I mean, I get it because I know they have a license with Universal Studios and they own a lot of the IPs are in this game, but I kind of wish they kind of branched out and got like more like other franchises. Like they had like video game ones like Mega Man and Five Nights at Freddy's. Maybe kind of get other video game ones like Pac-Man, or maybe perhaps like other movie franchises. Like they could always get, I don't know, some stuff from like Warner Brothers, or they can get stuff from like Disney. I mean, I know they have a huge license deal with Disney, but that being said, I still think the game overall is really, really good, minus all the IPs that they have that are Universal, but other than that, this game is pretty fun to play. Number 9, Sonic Generations X Shadow. This may not sort of count for this list, obviously, because this is a remake of an original game that came out at least about 10 or 11 years ago, and that is the original Sonic Generations. Now, I will probably say I really enjoyed the original Sonic Generations, but when this game finally got announced that it was going to get a remake, I was actually really surprised. But the other thing I was really surprised was that Sega actually was going to do it as it's like a double game where instead of like you just playing the original, you can also play as Shadow, and this time Shadow actually has a big part of this entire story. I thought it was kind of cool considering that Sonic 3 was kind of the main topic of Shadow and he became one of the main antagonists of the entire movie. Now obviously this was sort of a marketing tactic where Shadow was in the game, but I gotta say I actually thought it was a pretty good idea that Sega actually would include Shadow in it. I actually really big fan of Shadow. I actually think he's a great character, and I also think that him included in this game actually was a big part of it. It was actually one of the only aspects I actually really like about this game, minus the censorship. I'm one of those people that did not enjoy the woke censorship that was in this game, but then again, that's a whole different topic in of itself. But when it comes to this game, to me, it definitely feels like it's a brand new game with Shadow. It doesn't even really feel like it's an actual game based on the original. It feels brand new just with that kind of gameplay. And to be quite honest with you, the gameplay with Shadow is really cool as well. It almost felt like the original Shadow the Hedgehog game from back in the day when it was on GameCube. Even though I was one of those people that didn't exactly care for it because of the many storylines they had to go through and everything, but the game still was overall a lot of fun. I wouldn't mind if Sega actually remade that game someday. But with that being said, when it comes to the actual game itself, the Shadow levels was actually the only thing that made the game a lot better, even though I still enjoyed the original Sonic Generations and the levels that were still in there. We could revisit a lot of the levels from the original. It still was a lot of fun, and I still really enjoyed the Shadow levels, even though despite that it actually made the game 100 times better and actually made it a brand new game. Number 8, Sandland. Sandland was a game I didn't really expect to really like this year, mainly because it just looked a lot different from other RPGs I've seen, and since it is actually an open world RPG, it kind of made it a little bit more better. But the only reason that actually really got me into wanting to play it was because, obviously, one, it's by the same creator that actually created Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, which, rest in peace to him, which we lost this year, and also because it just looked like it was going to be a very unique game. I also seen a little bit of the anime, and the anime is actually really good, as well as some of the manga, and the manga I actually really enjoyed as well. It definitely was a lot of fun to actually read, and it reminded me a lot of how Dragon Ball was with the art style and the way the comedy is and everything. But when it comes to the game is a lot of fun to play. You get to customize your own vehicles, you get to like ride tanks, you get to drive cars, and you also get involved with a lot of the character storylines and actually beat some of the bosses, and also go through different objectives and everything. This game is just a lot of fun, and honestly, I recommend anybody who's really into anime, or who's really into RPGs, or just really a big fan of Akira Toriyama and his work on Dragon Ball and everything. This game will not disappoint you. Number 7, Fairy Tail Beach Volleyball Havoc. Beach Volleyball Havoc was actually a lot of fun to play this year, mainly because it was just kind of cool that Fairy Tail actually got more games. There were a couple games that came out that I actually really liked. Fairy Tail Dungeons wasn't a bad game, and as well as the other Fairy Tail game that came out, which I honestly was kind of iffy about this game, mainly because of the fact that, yeah, it was a JRPG, but as soon as the microtransactions came in, this is when the game really fell really short, and was just very disappointing to play, and that's where I was done with it. But when it comes to Beach Volleyball Havoc, this game was just a lot of fun. And I'm usually not a big fan of sport games, minus the Mario sports games, but this game was just a lot of fun. The fact you can actually play as a lot of the characters, you can unlock them, and they each have their own abilities. It's just a lot of fun, and it definitely got me really addicted into playing it. So honestly, I highly recommend playing this game if you're a big fan of Fairy Tail or just a big fan of anime in general. This game is a lot of fun. It honestly will not disappoint you whatsoever. Number 6, LEGO Horizon Adventures. LEGO Horizon was surprisingly a lot of fun to play this year. Obviously, because of two reasons. Because one, I really like a lot of LEGO games. I mean, I'm not too crazy about LEGO in general, like when it comes to the play sets and everything, but I still really enjoy a lot of the games. I like LEGO Star Wars, LEGO Harry Potter, Marvel. I mean, everything that mostly LEGO makes when it comes to games is actually pretty good. But I was actually really surprised that Horizon, which I'm actually a big fan of a lot of the Horizon games, I actually was really surprised that LEGO would actually collaborate with Sony and make an actual LEGO Horizon game that was pretty good. This game is just completely different from a lot of LEGO games. And that's kind of why I really like about it. It definitely feels like I'm playing a lot of the Horizon games all over again with all the characters and everything, and it's just a lot of fun. I also really like a lot of the skins that you also get where they do a lot of references from a lot of Sony games, which is kind of cool. But either way, this game was a lot of fun to play. I think if you really like a lot of the Horizon games or just really like LEGO in general, this game I think you'll have a lot of fun with, and I actually did myself. I thought it was a really good game. Number 5, The Plucky Squire. Out of all the indie games that came out this year, The Plucky Squire was actually a game that I was really heavily surprised I really enjoyed. This game was just everything from the way that actually the game was and based on the premise. The premise is really interesting, like the way it's kind of like a storybook, and you basically just kind of go from like each from out of the book and then all the way back in the book. It just had like a blend of everything, and it just had such a unique premise to it. I even think the game reminds me a little bit like Legend of Zelda, Paper Mario, and maybe a little bit of blend of Little Nightmares. This game was just everything. So honestly, I recommend anybody who's really into these kind of games, or is really into platformers, or just really want to see this kind of game really happen. This game was just awesome. I really recommend it for anybody who's really into indie games. This was a great game. Number 4, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Echoes of Wisdom was a game I was really anticipated to play this year. Out of the top 4 games that are on this list, this was one of the games I was really anticipated to play. Obviously because it's Zelda and I love a lot of the Zelda games, but I was also a big fan of Link's Awakening on the Switch, and that game was just awesome. This game is very similar to Link's Awakening and how it kind of takes place between after that game. This game honestly was its own thing where you get to play as Zelda. It almost kind of reminded me a little bit of Spirit Tracks, where you actually had Zelda as your main companion as she was a ghost. But to be honest with you, with this game, you actually get to play as her. It's about time, actually, since I've always wanted Zelda to actually be a playable character, and she can go on her own adventure and everything. This game was a blend of all that, and the gameplay was very similar to Link's Awakening and how they took advantage of it. So to be quite honest with you, I really like this game a lot, and it's definitely one of my favorite Zelda games to play. Number 3, Mario & Luigi Brothership. Brothership was a fantastic game to play this year. As a big fan of the Mario & Luigi RPG games, I was really excited to play this game. Ever since it first got announced, I was just ready to play it. And the fact it's on the Switch instead of like the DS or the 3DS was even better. And this game is very similar to the original games. It's a shame that Nintendo stopped making a lot of the Mario & Luigi games back in the day, ever since the original developer of the RPG games went out of business. And also Nintendo just kind of remade a lot of the games on the 3DS, like Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story. Not to say those games are terrible, those games are fantastic as well. But honestly, I was really happy that Nintendo finally made another Mario & Luigi game. These games are just fantastic, and this game is just fantastic. I really enjoy it. And honestly, it feels a lot like those original games. So honestly, I recommend anybody who's really into the Mario & Luigi games, or just like Nintendo in general, I think they will really like this game a lot. It's really good. Number 2, Princess Peach Showtime. Showtime is easily my favorite Switch game this year. Obviously because it has Peach and it's a game about Peach, and Peach is my favorite character in a lot of the Mario games. But to be honest with you, I've wanted Nintendo to finally make another game for Peach ever since Super Princess Peach came out. Super Princess Peach is one of my favorite games on the DS, and ever since then I've always wanted them to finally make another game for Peach. And I also made a petition back in the day to push Nintendo to actually make another Peach game. But I feel like they've actually listened and they finally gave Peach another game. This game is just awesome. The fact you can actually play as her and she does all the costumes, you beat bosses, and you collect things. To be honest with you, this game is just awesome. I recommend anybody who's really into the character and really want to play her game. Honestly, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. And my number 1 favorite game of 2024 is Astrobot. That's right, Astrobot is my favorite game of 2024. I just completely love this game to death. Obviously because it's a platformer and I love platformers. And platformers has always been one of my favorite genre of video games. But Astrobot was a game that was really unique of its own, and actually, surprisingly, I really fell in love with it. This game, what started it as a tech demo for Sony, turned out to be one of the funnest platformers I've ever played on the PlayStation 5. It was just literally a blend of everything, from the fact that it celebrated the 30th anniversary of the PlayStation brand, to a lot of the skins, a lot of the references from the brand itself. Honestly, this game is just a lot of fun. I know a lot of people don't like the idea that I actually have Astrobot as my favorite game, but to be quite honest with you, I understand everybody has their own opinion on what their favorite game is of this year, and my favorite is Astrobot. There's a lot of reasons why I love Astrobot for the way it is. Obviously because this game, was kind of a dedication to my uncle who actually bought me the game, who just recently passed away, and the fact that I just really enjoy the quality and the content that's in this game. Yeah, some people may compare it to a traditional Mario game where it's kind of like a more platformer, but to me, Astrobot is everything that I wanted from a platformer for many years, especially with someone like me who grew up with the genre. This game, honestly, is just a lot of fun, and I highly recommend anybody who's grew up with a lot of platformers from like back in the PlayStation days or the Nintendo days, they'll really like this game. This game has everything that you would want from a platformer perspective.